Rays taking on the Blue Jays, trying to salvage a split of this 4-game series. Luis Castillo has been dominant this year, is on the hill. Kevin Gausman on the hill for Toronto, so kind of a Cy Young matchup here. Top three, Castillo in a little bit of trouble with the man on second, but gets a strikeout there for the second out of the inning, and then sits down Desan Brown as well. So we head to the bottom of the third. Still scoreless. Randy Arozarena looking to extend a 12-game hitting streak, and he does, making it 13 with a base hit to right. So third and first, 2 outs. Salvador Perez digging in here, trying to come through with a runner in scoring position, but he can't as he goes down looking. So bottom 5, still scoreless. The battle of Cy Young's living up to its potential. 1 on, 1 out here as Wander Franco is going to lace a 3-2 pitch up the middle. So it looks like Salvador Perez is going to get another opportunity with men on base and 2 outs. And he will not waste this one as he belts a hanging slider deep over the fence and left and breaks this game open. So Tampa takes a 3-0 lead here at the midway point of this ball game. Top 7 still 3-0. Castillo looking to finish in style, and he does, getting a strikeout to end the top half of the 7th. Bottom 7, Salvador Perez once again up with 2 men on, and he's going to come through again. Little inside-out swing, drives a runner in from third and extends Tampa's lead to 4. And then later on that same inning, bases loaded, 3-2 count for Chris Bryant. He'll take a circle change just outside. So the Rays add another run. Bottom of the 8th, leading off the inning, Brandon Crawford against Anthony Bass, and he is going to take the veteran right-hander deep to right. Blasts one off the Palm Hotel out there beyond that imitation green monster that Tampa has. So the Rays extend their lead to 6-0, and they're not done yet as Randy Arozarena will lace a ball to left. Just misses a home run, but he'll get into second with a double. And the Rays have a touchdown on the board. It's 7-0 Tampa. Salvador Perez, why not come through with a runner in scoring position one more time in this game? Another base hit to right will drive in Arozarena. Perez scoots all the way down to second. And the Rays, with an 8-0 lead, will finish off their shutout victory. Jason Adam punches out Brandon Belt. Tampa does indeed salvage that split of this 4-game series and remains in first place in the East. Next up, Tampa's looking to finish off a series victory over the Cubs. Former Ray Taj Bradley and former Cub Marcus Stroman on the mound for their new teams. Bottom of the first, Eric Hosmer is going to fly one to center. Margot is going to handle that. Throw into the cutoff man, Lau, ends up turning into a disaster as Lau whips one to first over the head of the first baseman. That's out of play. And former Ray, Curtis Mead, is going to drive that run in with a bloop single to center. So Chicago jumps on the board first. Bottom 2, Patrick Wisdom, always dangerous, and there's a reason for that, as he goes deep to left center. His 6th of the season, and Chicago has an early 2-0 lead. Top 3, Wander Franco looking to get the Rays back into the game, and he does. So he rips a pitch down into that infamous right field corner at Wrigley Field. Wander's going to get all the way to third with a triple, one of 2 triples he'd have in the day, and also cut the Rays deficit in half. But bottom of the third, the Cubs aren't done playing long ball. It's Nico Horner. He's going to blast one deep over the wall and left. Chicago extends their lead back to 2. Top of the 4th, the balls are flying out of Wrigley today, and Nolan Arenado figured he might as well join in. So he hits his 10th homer of the season, deep to left center. Score would remain 3-2 in the top of the 6th. New pitcher Joey Lucchesi in for the Cubs as Randy Arozarena takes a walk to load the bases with 1 out. So former Cub Ian Happ rips one down the left field line just fair. That's going to score 2 runs and give Tampa Bay a lead that it would not relinquish. Finishing the former players against their former team theme, Yan Gomes will tack on an insurance run with a fly ball to center. That is deep enough for Arozarena to tag. Bottom 7, the Cubs mounting a little bit of a rally. Eric Hosmer with 2 outs. He's going to lace one to right, but Ian Happ is there. And Kendall Graveman with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th. Gets Nico Horner to roll over on one to short. Franco makes the play, and the Rays win the series in Chicago and end their white-hot May on a good note. Meanwhile, the Mets are going to take on the Rockies in Colorado. Ryan Feltner and David Peterson on the mound for their respective squads. Top two, Tommy Edman, looking to get something going with 2 outs and nobody on, and he will, as he's going to blast one to right center. That mile-high air maybe help that one sneak over the wall, so the Mets take a 1-0 lead. And mere moments later, actually the next pitch that the Mets face, Danny Mendick is going to blast one to right center as well. So the Mets go back-to-back and give themselves an early 2-0 lead here in Colorado. Bottom three, David Peterson facing Jerks and Profar with 2 outs and nobody on. Profar looks like he's got a base hit, but Jeremy Pena makes a phenomenal diving grab. That would set up one of many highlights that Pena would bring forth on this day, as next time he's up top 5, he's going to smoke one to right center. That gets up the gap and drives in a run, so Pena's got extra bases, and the Mets now have a 3-0 lead. They can't cash in that run, but top of the 6th, Pete Alonso steps up, and there another one goes deep to right center, so the Mets have their 3rd homer on the day and extend their lead to 4-0 as Peterson continues to cruise. Bottom 6, 2-2 count here with 2 outs, and Peterson's going to get one of his 6 strikeouts on the day. Pete Alonso's not done driving in runs, as top of the 7th, Jeremy Pena, after another base hit, is going to come around to score thanks to an Alonso single. And bottom of the 7th, Colorado poses one of their only rallies of the day with runners on the corners and nobody out, but a line-out double play is going to put an end to that. And Francisco Alvarez, having a great season so far, is going to put the cherry on top of the Mets' win with a blast to left. So the Mets extend their lead to 7, and Dennis Santana, in for some garbage time, will finish off an impressive win for the Mets. 7-0 over the Rockies, and the Mets also finish May on a strong note. Are at the end of May, the Rays sitting in a good spot, up 3 games on the Yankees. The Orioles had a terrible month, so they went from being right up near the top of the Major League standings into 3rd in the American League East. If we look at the team stats, Chris Bryant has continued his tear, hitting 11 homers, 271 average. Nolan Arenado not far behind, almost hitting 300 with 10 homers. And all in all, the lineup still has its share of anchors. Brandon Lau is really struggling, only 181. Ian Happ barely above 200. But pretty good balance. Salvador Perez not far behind either Bryant or Arenado. He's got 9 homers and he's heated up a little bit. Harold Ramirez has been fantastic in spot starts and starting against lefties, 342 with a couple of homers. So lineup's been pretty good. If we look at the pitching, Marcus Stroman and Luis Castillo really pacing the win-loss categories, especially relative to everyone else. It's funny, Stroman's 10-2 and his ERA is 2.78. Tyler Glasnow's is a half point higher and he's 1-5. So some interesting run support situations there, but really good performances up and down the rotation. Everyone has stayed healthy. Glasnow got hurt, missed a couple of starts with a concussion towards the end of April, early May, but otherwise everyone's been healthy, especially DeGrom, and he's been good. I mean, he has an ERA right there with Castillo and Stroman, but he's only 3-4, so definitely a run support issue there. And then the bullpen, since we made the trade and shipped out Liam Hendricks, Aroldis Chapman's been all right. Not fantastic, but also not too bad. And Scott Barlow has continued his great start to the season. And then Kendall Graveman's still pitching really well. Jason Adam has an ERA under 2. Pete Fairbanks under 2. Poche, Clevenger, both really sterling ERAs. So all in all, it was a really good month for us in Tampa. As you see, you may remember we started the month well. Lost that game to Baltimore that we played, but started the month on a tear. Swept the Mets with a couple of close ones, and that ended up being the middle of another winning streak. So as a result of that sweep and then winning the last game in New York, we ended up winning 8 in a row. And then finished the month with a couple wins over Chicago and some come-from-behind fashions. So all in all, sitting in a good spot relative to the rest of the league. If we look at, we already saw the East, but Central and West. So in Tampa, we have the best record in the American League. And playing well, the trade for the pair of relievers from Kansas City has worked out well, and I think we got a bright future ahead of us for the summer. If we pivot over to the Mets, take a look at those standings. The Mets are also in first place. Not quite as good of a record as Tampa, but part and parcel to playing in what looks like the worst division in baseball this year. The Mets are still able to stay afloat. If we look at the overall outcome of the month started pretty good. After that final Colorado game, we were 6-1 up to that point in May, but then hit the skids a little bit, lost 3 straight series, including a sweep, and losing 3 of 4 to Washington, so a really bad stretch there in the middle. Then picked things up a little bit towards the end and kind of regained our footing, but still kind of the same story as April. Snake bitten in these close games a lot of the times. I mean, there are some close wins in here too, but if you just do a quick scan of the losses, again, we've talked about this game before, but that was a 2-1 loss, 2-1, 4-1, 3-2, 2-1, 2-1, 4-3, 5-4, 4-3, 1-0. It's actually kind of incredible, the tightrope that the Mets are doing, where we're winning and losing a pretty fair amount of our respective games, but the wins tend to be these laughers. 12-4, 7-3 isn't a laugher, but still beyond a save situation. 15-4, 9-2, and yet the 1-run games are a problem. So it's funny, if you look at the run differential compared to just like a quick scan of the rest of the National League, just as good as anyone else's, if not better. And meanwhile, the Giants are sitting 39-18, Cardinals 34-23. And so the Mets, relative to the run differential, have easily the worst record of good teams. But because the National League East is such a mess, we're still in a good spot moving forward. Take a look at the standings, the stats. Will Smith hitting a bunch of homers. He's got 12. Alvarez has 11. And then Alonso, one of the best in the league, with 15. So the averages are still pretty porous. Danny Mendick off the bench is the only one above 300. And Jeremy Pena is kind of close. 285 with 8 homers is pretty good. But otherwise, we have some really miserable performances happening at the plate. Leody Taveras is hitting 181 with an OBP of 222 and OPS under 500. I mean, that's got to be one of the worst in the league for qualified players. So that's an issue. Pete Alonso was never going to be a high average guy, but at least he's making up for it with homers. Adolis Garcia has picked it up a little bit. He was kind of in that Leody Taveras, like hitting in the 100s range for a while there. He actually had a really big series against Tampa, even though the Mets got swept. Had some big knocks, hit a big homer in the last game too. So we'll see. I don't know if the Mets will pick up their performance, if they'll continue to kind of just be a little bit above average, and the National League East will make that a non-issue for staying in first place. We'll see. Like I've said before, the Mets are in a much trickier spot with regard to trades because we do have some financial flexibility. We have a couple million that we can spare, given that we're at $46.6 million right now for the player payroll, but nowhere near the room that the Rays have to add players here and there. So we'll see. But that's where the Mets are at, and all in all, that's where both teams are at as we head into June and beyond.